Hi, and welcome to episode 119 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry, Instagram, and Periscope. And today is Sunday, October 4th, 2015. I think this is going to be a little bit of a shorter show this week. I'll be honest, I'm not really feeling like I want to record, but I have things to show you. It's October, Socktober, as it's been all over Instagram and people are knitting socks. So I thought I would kind of go through and show you, socks in progress that I have. One of them I'm doing in a kind of a different way. It's the first time I've ever knit socks exactly this way. And I do have a finished project to show you, so stay tuned for that. But let's start out with what's on my needles. Like I said, I have a fair number of socks on the needles. I did actually have, the sock yarn that I spun last summer. I sort of wanted to cast those on, but all my needles were filled already, and I didn't want to go out and buy new, sock size needles since I have like 3 or 4 sets already. So the first one I'm going to show you is one that I have been I showed it to you last summer when I cast it on, but I have been trying to work a little bit on it every day because they match one of my pairs of shoes that I want to be able to wear them together. So it's this sock. This is Lollipop Yarns, the Blue Skies color, and I have the little blue kind of Mary Jane Sandras, the Fluebog Sandras that I bought last spring. And so I've been wearing them just without socks. But this yarn, I found it in my stash when I bought the shoes, and they match it exactly. So I really want to get these done so that I can wear them, together. So this was sort of my take around knitting, and I worked on these at camp a little bit, and so this is going to be an afterthought heel sock. As most of my socks are, I actually really like how they fit my feet. I've worked out to sort of how to get them so that they work well, and of course I think look the prettiest when you do the self-striping yarn. This is kind of my basic way of doing socks. I know I've talked about it several times. I prefer doing socks on 2 circular needles. I used to always use double points. I've been knitting socks for a long time. And I used to always use double points, and then, but I'm clumsy and I would drop them, and I was knitting in places where I didn't really necessarily want to pick them up off of the floor in hospitals and stuff. So I kind of converted, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I converted to doing them on 2 circulars. I enjoy doing 2 circulars more than one long circular magic loop style, just because I feel like there's less needle management. I don't know, it goes faster for me. So that is my preferred method, and I also do them toe up because I like the way when you increase on the side of your foot, I like the way that feels more than when you decrease a toe. I knit them to 10 stitches to the inch. I know I've said it before. It really doesn't matter so much what the size of the needle that you use is. It's the gauge that you get on your sock. I get 10 stitches to the inch for my socks for 2 reasons. I've knit socks for a long time, and I am really lucky that I have an entire sock drawer that's filled. I don't need to replenish it actually, because I have plenty of socks in there. But I use sock knitting for kind of a portable project to work on. And, they're pretty if you want to match, these are going to match my shoes. So about 10 years ago, I changed the way I was knitting socks and radically lowered my gauge on them. And so I knit to 10 stitches to the inch. I think normal or like average is maybe 8 stitches to the inch. If you find that your socks wear out after a year or two, it's probably not the fault of the yarn, but maybe of your gauge. When I, changed and ratcheted down my gauge, I find that my socks, they don't wear out. I think one pair in all that time I've had to put in a new heel. And that is where my socks wear is on the heel. Everybody, how they walk, where you wear might be in a toe or might be the bottom of the foot. For me, it's the heel. And that's another reason why I like to do afterthought heels, is because they're so simple to replace. But I've only ever had to do that once. So because of the tightness of the gauge, it's less likely to wear, and also I find them way more comfortable on the bottoms of my feet. Before I used a really small gauge, I used to have to knit them so that the sole of the sock was flipped, so that the stockinette side was to the inside and the purl side was on the outside of my my foot, because the purl bumps just irritated it, so I would need the stockinette side. Once I lowered the gauge down, it made them way more comfortable to wear. So I knit with 76 stitches on my socks, always. And that's because I have the gauge of 10 stitches to the inch. For me, that means using size 0 needles, which is 2 millimeter. And I don't find it an issue. The needle size, it's just what I use. So that is one. So the second one I'll show you is kind of the new kind of method that I'm using for this one that I've never done. It's not new, but I've never done them this way before. I tend to be a one sock at a time person. I've done 2 socks at a time, and it's just it just feels like it takes a long time. I know a lot of people love that, and that's great. So there was one way of knitting 2 socks at a time that I had never done before. And let's see, last spring I bought I bought 3 skeins of the Arnie and Carlos Regia yarn. I saw it in a store, and I just was overcome and just had to buy them all. So I knit kind of 1 sock of each. I'm on the 3rd one. I'm knitting a first sock of the 3rd one, which is the kind of the black and gray with the kind of blue and red in it. And I don't have that sock with me to show you, but I think I showed you I knit the kind of orangey one, and I don't have the numbers right with me. So this was like sock number 1. And then another sock that I used last summer, that kind of my take around knitting, was this one was the blue and kind of orangey one. I think this one looks like Rosemary colors. And I love this sock like so much, and this just happened. It just happened that way. Happy accident. I just started it where the end of the skein was, but it has this kind of bigger stripe, equal distance at the top and the bottom, and then it's right in the middle where the heel is. And it just happened. That's where my heel needed to be, and it's like the perfectly balanced sock. I love it so much. I didn't even think, this one is just like slightly off. You can see it, where that happened, but So now when I started the second one of both of these, I did try to match them because I do like to have my socks matching, but I was really working hard at the blue one because I love how that works. So I don't usually knit 2 socks at a time, but a long time ago I heard about this way and kind of filed it away, and I thought, I've got these 2 second socks to knit. Maybe I should try that, and just so I can say, okay, I've knit them like that. And I always heard them referred to as War and Peace socks, which I've never read War and Peace, but I guess there's a scene where a character kind of knits socks this way and then kind of shows them off with a flourish. I think of it as parlor knitting. I guess that's why, because apparently in that scene, she's sitting in the parlor and has to like make a big deal when they're finished. So what this is it's you're knitting 2 socks at a time, one inside the other. So here are my 2 socks. It's the blue one and the orange one, and they're I just have them on 2 circulars. I'm doing these different. I'm sure back in the day they did them on double points and probably cuffed down, but this is my like regular way. So I don't know if it's going to show, but they are sitting right sides together. So the wrong sides, like when I pull those out, they're both the wrong sides of the sock. So the stitches for them are alternated on the needle. I'll try to, if you can sort of see. I actually worked at them because it just so happened that they were both the orange and the white at the same time, and so I did sit down and like try to get past that point so that hopefully it would show that it was alternating those stitches. So it's alternated, one from the front sock, one from the back sock, and you have 2 strands of yarn. You're one for each one, and you do it. It's a little bit like if anybody did the twine knitting when I was doing the twine knitting last winter, where you had the kind of patterny, like pretty stuff on the front of the mitten, and you had like 2 strands of yarn. You weren't twisting them, but you had kind of one in the front and one in the back. It's kind of the same thing, so that you're knitting with you knit once, you purl the front stitch, and then you knit the back stitch. So you're doing a purl and then a knit and a purl and a knit, but you're not moving your yarns anywhere. The front yarn always stays in the front, the back yarn always stays in the back. And it's slow because you've got double stitches on both needles. So there are kind of like, I've been like just playing. I mean, I'm only this far, so I've been playing a little bit in that it was using one strand in one hand, one in the other, kind of like you would do sometimes stranded knitting. So I would purl with my left hand and knit with my right, and then because I am usually a continental knitter, and I oftentimes, if I'm doing the ribbing, I will often like purl with the yarn around my thumb. So for me, it's been working well to do kind of one with the front yarn around my thumb, and I purl with that one, and the back yarn that I knit with that one. So for me, it's been working well to do that. When if I'm doing the ribbing of a cuff of a sock, I often will purl with it around my thumb because it's faster to me. It does make a tighter fabric. So like if I'm doing something on straight needles, stockinette, I don't purl like that. I purl regular, because otherwise I do purl tighter when I purl like this. So if I was just doing it back and forth, I would end up with a lot of like rowing out between, my knit and purl gauge. So, but with this, or when I'm doing ribbing on the top of a sock, you're going in the round, it really doesn't matter. So anyway, that is my little parlor trick for knitting 2 socks at a time. You know, not it's kind of really new. We'll see after I get, half of a sock done if I cannot stand doing it. But I know when I kind of did 2 on the same needles, I really did not enjoy it. It felt like it took forever. So I don't know. And also I'm not minding, I was worried that, or wondering whether my gauge would be the same doing them like that, since they're, like the stitches are separated, more. And also because this one I'm doing, it's like on the outside. So would that like, make my gauge, larger, which is also why I figure if I'm purling, and that's usually my tighter way of purling, hopefully they will come out the same size as the socks I did singly. But it's one of those things where you have to, well, you don't have to, but it's probably a good idea to make sure every so often, pull them apart like that to make sure you don't catch a thread. I'm working these on, they're both Addi needles. One is an Addi lace and one is an old Addi turbo, like the old style turbo with, not the sock rocket one. And that one is actually working way better. Maybe it's just the yarn. I'm not a hugest fan of Regia yarn. But the lace needle is just too pointy. And I have to be really careful not to split a stitch or like get a little, nick a little one of the back side when I'm purling. So, but anyway, it's still fun and games because it's still, kind of new. So I have that, and then I have one other sock on the needles to show you, and I kind of, picked it up because it's kind of fall colored, and this is my it's another lollipop yarn. It's Autumn Amore, which that yellow just does not show up the way it is in person. In person, it's more of a gold kind of yellow, not as like sunshiny yellow as it's looking there. So it does really look like fall colors. But I picked this one back up, and if I'm not going to push to like try to get them done to like wear, I would rather get those blue ones done. But I thought if I'm going to take socks somewhere, these are would be pretty to take because they're autumn. Even though autumn and fall is not my favorite time of year in the long, and I think that's kind of why I'm not feeling just not feeling the love for fall. I know everybody on my Instagram, I swear everybody on my Instagram is just like beside themselves. They're so happy it's autumn. To me, fall is just this long, slow slide into winter. There's nothing hopeful or optimistic, and the leaves are all fall off the trees and everything dies and it gets cold, and it is not my favorite time of year by a long shot. But I do have one more thing that I wanted to show you for what's on my needles, and that is the progress of my sweater that I've been working on. This is the Garland Necklace Yoke Sweater by Meg Swanson, and I think I'm at the point where I'm at the top of the yoke. She calls this the necklace yoke sweater because I don't know if it shows on this picture. It's got quite a wide like neckline on it, which when I've done like my boho pullovers, I really like that sort of look. Those are usually a you know, a little bit bigger neckline. I don't know, it just, I like it on those. It looks a little dressier and stuff. For the cardigan, I was worried that so in the pattern she gives you 3 charts. She gives you one just like this. She gives you one that adds on to the top to make sort of a regular neckline. And then she does a shallower one so that if you did this sweater in a bigger gauge, then you could have that same kind of lowered, you know, larger neckline. So anyway, I got to the point where this one was, and I tried it on, and I was just worried that it would, if I wore it kind of open, that it would, you know, slide off my shoulders a little bit. So then I added the full amount for the second chart, and I felt like it was too high because I want to do a little bit more, you know, on the back of the neck to lift the back up. So I took that back down and I took it to like this point, and I think this is kind of where I want it because I'm going to do a little bit of garter in the black for the neck, and then I'm going to do just a really thin little edging for the fronts. This is, you can see this is my steek where those vertical lines are. I'm doing a pretty narrow steek. I usually do a little bit wider of one. This is only going to be 5 stitches wide. And so I want to do, because of how I want to finish the neckline, I don't want to do like a wide band. So I want to do just a little skinny band. So I have to work all that. So that, you know, is left to do. I've already grafted underneath the armholes. That is one thing about the unspun Icelandic. I love working with it, but it is like a pencil roving, and so if you're working with it and it drifts apart or, you know, catches on something or whatever, it's easy to put back together. But when you're doing like when you cast on, or like those underarm stitches, or wherever there's like, you know, you usually have a little tail hanging, I usually try to just go like maybe an inch above the cast on and then work the ends in, so that, because, you know, if it catches and you've got just, even if you've got this little tail, it can like pull, and you might be left with a little tuft of, you know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, which is really, you know, it's kind of, you know, rough, hairy yarn that I'm not too worried about it, you know, falling apart. But you do want to work those ends in. And that's also why with this kind of yarn, I'm not nervous about having such a narrow little steek that, you know, it probably would be fine without anything. I will be doing a crochet, you know, stitch along the edge, or along the steek line, to stabilize it, because when you fold that in, when it just automatically folds in, and it makes the really nice like finished edge. So that's where that is. So for off the needles, I have something off the needles. When I cast on that big group in August, you know, big group of projects, I, in the back of my mind, thought I'm going to have to sort of, for an off the needles segment, I will have to go back and find old things to show, because whereas I'm a process knitter and I love just the process of knitting, and you might be a product knitter and want to see actual finished things. So I didn't expect to have something finished every week, which has happened lately, and And this is actually why I thought I need to sit down and record, because I wanted to show this off. And so I showed this in the works a couple of weeks ago, but I finished my Faroese shawl and this is out of Kid Silk Haze. So I'm not sure like what's showing. I can't really see through the screen. So it came out to a pretty good size. The color is the most beautiful, like turquoise blue. It's a Rowan Kid Silk Haze in the Atlantic color, and I love it so much. I'm not sure if it's kind of hard to see, but it's got sort of a kind of butterfly like winged shape, and you do add that in when you do the blocking, because it's in this like section up in here you do shaping so that it will, like, what's behind me, like it will just like sit on my shoulders, and I can, it will just stay there. You can call me old, you can call me old-fashioned, you can call me out of style or whatever, but like this is a working shawl. And my back gets cold. My girls, not so much. So I don't really need to have a shawl like to drape like around just for fashion. But I will like wear this to keep warm. So this kind of a shawl, it's a Faroese shawl, which you can see it's got this sort of center like panel that is representative of the Faroese shawls. And these were kind of working shawls. They had long tails so that you could kind of wrap it around the front and tie it. This one, the tails aren't quite as long as I need to tie it, or maybe I just need to be skinnier so that I could tie it. But that's fine. I generally will wrap it around like so that it looks like a shrug, and tie it that way. But the Faroe Islands, I've never been there, but just from where they're located, they're kind of east of Iceland, kind of, between sort of like, Iceland and Norway. So they must be cold there, I'm thinking that. And I also, so I love it. I love the lace patterning. And that doesn't really have a name. This was another Meg Swanson design, but it was in her wool gathering last fall. And so for, the other, so, and I really just made it according to the pattern. I had done a provisional cast on for the bottom, and sort of thought, well, I'll just do Elizabeth sewn bind off, because that's nice and stretchy and it leaves a nice, edge. But with the Kid Silk Haze, I don't know if I wanted to be, dragging all that, like that fuzz, whereas I love the Kid Silk Haze, that one might have been kind of a pain to do. So I ended up doing the Icelandic bind off, which looks really pretty with the garter kind of on the edging, and it is like, pretty stretchy. So I am, that's how I ended it. And yeah, so I am happy to have a new shawl. The shawl that I have been wearing is just in rags and tatters. It's just awful. So it'll be, and this is so like super lightweight that just when I had it around my shoulders, I could feel like, you could feel the warmth from it. So anyway, finished project. And that is really all that I have. Like I said, I'm not really feeling, it's just gloomy and dark, and not loving it. I want to thank everybody for watching, and also I wanted to thank everybody who wrote to me last week, either private message or on Instagram or in the thread about the podcast. I really, really appreciate it, and it's always great to hear from you. And so thank you so much. But the podcast can be found on iTunes. It can be found on YouTube. The channel is Heartland Knits, 2 words, Heartland space knits. Subscribe over there, thumbs up over there, whatever. I also embed it on the blog, which is heartlandknits.blogspot.com. And I also embed the video on the Ravelry group thread, which is Friends of Heartland Knits. So you can, join there if you want to, if it's easier to go through and see when there's a new post or something like that. So I've been trying to remember to do that, but thank you. I feel better after. I was feeling much more blue when I started, but maybe you helped get me out of the doldrums a little bit. So thanks again for that. But anyway, I hope you all have a good week and love fall if you love it. And find something else if you don't. That's what I'm going to go look for. So thank you all for watching. And until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.